Working in the city was exhausting, and she couldn't save any money, so she quit her job and moved back to her hometown in the countryside. She lived alone in the old house her parents left behind. She kept things simple, up with the sun, down when it set. She planted a few acres of rice in the fields. She cleared her own veggie garden and grew some fruits and vegetables. Sometimes she'd hike up the nearby mountains to pick wild greens. When she wasn't doing farm work, she'd make little pastries at home. Sometimes she'd hang out with her childhood bestie on the porch, eating wild berries they picked. Living in the countryside didn't cost much. Growing her own crops meant she could totally take care of herself. This kind of life was pretty chill, but she still wasn't sure if she should stay in the village forever. She was still so young. Did she really want to spend her whole life stuck in this remote place, slowly getting old? Her hometown was in some remote valley. She'd been living here for about a year now. It was peak summer. The humidity was basically 100%. The whole village was covered in this thick, sticky steam that just wouldn't go away. When she got home from shopping in town, her shirt was already soaked halfway through with sweat and moisture. The crazy high humidity made her feel like if she had gills, she could probably swim through the air. Her rice fields grew tons of weeds in summer. She had to go weed them every few days, but weeds were super tough. Even when she pulled them out by the roots, they'd grow back in a few days. It was frustrating, and there was nothing she could do about it. She'd often think, you can never really get rid of all the weeds in the field. Back home, clothes she'd hung up 2 days ago still weren't dry. The kitchen utensils were all growing mold. To get rid of the moisture in the house, she started burning a wood stove. The moisture evaporated and went out through the chimney. The high heat made the inside super dry. The stove didn't just remove moisture, she also used it to bake bread. Since the stove was way bigger than a regular oven, she could bake much larger loaves. She mixed flour and yeast together and kneaded it into dough. Then she had to knead it 2 more times to let it ferment better. After the dough was done fermenting, the firewood had just burned out. The stove was at 200 degrees, perfect temperature for baking bread. By the time all the moisture in the house was gone, the bread in the stove was done too. A few days later, she went to weed again. She used the machine first, then had to do it by hand again. When she was picking weeds, her back and waist always ached. There were bugs of all sizes buzzing around in the air. Whenever this happened, she'd want to make some refreshing sour rice wine. She mixed wine starter and rice porridge in a jar, stirred it up, then left the jar in the kitchen at room temperature overnight. The next day, she added some yeast. After a few hours, bubbles started forming on top of the rice wine. Then she filtered out the residue, and her homemade sour rice wine was ready. But after making it, she didn't rush to drink it. She put the rice wine in the fridge to chill. By the time she finished weeding in the veggie garden, the chilled sour rice wine in the fridge had the perfect taste. Next to her house was an autumn olive tree. Since autumn olives were bitter and sour, she'd never liked this wild fruit since she was little. When she was a kid, she and her friends never wanted to eat autumn olives. The fruit nobody picked would just fall on the ground and rot. Now, looking at the autumn olives that still nobody wanted, she suddenly got the idea to make jam with them.